what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 2 4 key game picks. Before we talk about my picks for Week number 2, let's talk a little bit about Week number 1. A lot of things went on in Week number 1, but obviously the big story coming out of Week number 1 before Week 1 was even played. Last Sunday, Antonio Brown going to the New England Patriots. The Antonio Brown thing is a whole nother take I don't have time for. That'll be a whole different rant. I don't want to get into too much though. But what really happened besides that, I have to look back at everything that happened in Week number 1, including that first game on Thursday night. The Bears and the Packers really, both teams played terribly, even though the Packers did win that game. Aaron Rodgers played much better than Trubisky did, but to me, the defenses on both the Bears and the Packers were the difference maker. But to me, their offense, I don't know. If I'm a Packers fan, I would be a little discouraged there, even though you did win with defense. But offense-wise, offense needs some help there. Same thing with the Bears. Trubisky, he played like a rookie, and he didn't do all that well to help his cause with his team. So really right now, the Bears offense needs to wake up going into Week number 2. Their defense was dominant, but their offense did not do well. Other key points that came out of Week number 1, obviously, the high power, the high octane offense of the Kansas City Chiefs did a number on Jacksonville. Scary moment that Patrick Mahomes almost got hurt in that game, and it was definitely a scary moment on that part. But it's going to be interesting to see what will happen going into the next game against the Raiders, to see if that injury was only minor or something like that. The defending NFC champion Rams, their win wasn't that impressive. Even though the Panthers played them very well, the Rams dominated them in the second half. The defending NFC champions really did not play like the defending NFC champions. I noticed they still have some of the same offensive flaws. Now, even though Todd Gurley did play much better in this game than he did in the Super Bowl last year, but really that offense really needs still some work. And their defense really did a decent job, but their defense does bring in some questions as well. And obviously, if you saw what happened to Eric Weddle, boy, he took a bloody beating, and it wasn't kidding. I wasn't kidding on that part there. The defending Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots, look like the defending champions. Boy, depending on what happens with Antonio Brown coming in, I don't know if the Patriots look to be unbeatable. I don't know. It's tough to say, but the way this team is right now, and you having Antonio Brown in that lineup, it's nightmare come true. If you're a Patriot hater fan, including myself, it's a nightmare come true. Other than that, there went on a big Monday night game between the Texans and the Saints. Oh boy, Deshaun Watson really took a beating in that game, and they almost did steal that game, but then in the end, the Saints came back and won on a late second field goal. Boy, was that was a good Monday night game. I will admit that. But then again, questionable calls in that game, and I know there's a lot of Saints fans speculating in whether the referee's out to get them. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of questionable penalties in that game, but in the end, the Saints still ended up winning. Raiders won without AB. Do the Raiders have a legitimate chance of being contenders in their own division, or is the Denver Broncos really that bad? My answer to that is the Broncos are really that bad. Joe Flacco being in that offense really did not do all that well. And of course, finally, the Browns. All the hype that went on for this team in the offseason, a lot of it to me was disappointing. Really disappointing. The Titans blew them out. They blew them out by 30 points. And there's a lot of questions for this Cleveland Browns team going into Week number 2, whether next week's game, I have to say, is must-win for them. Anyways, enough of my babbling going around here. Let's get into Week number 2. All right, let's begin with key game number 1, and we go to the NFC North Division. It is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. Packers are a 3-point favorite in this one, and this is the Packers' home opener. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins in that big win last week over the Falcons, he went 8 of 10, 98 yards, and 1 touchdown pass. Their defense really did a great job against against the Atlanta Falcons. Really, the defense was huge in that game. They're going to need to be even bigger against Aaron Rodgers on that offense. Aaron Rodgers praising his defense there. Let's see if they get that offense going. Minnesota's got a pretty good defense too. Just like the Bears, that offense needs to click. They need to get it going here. And speaking of statistics here, Rodgers in the win against the Bears last week, 18 of 30, 203 yards, 1 touchdown. That offense really needs to get it going, and especially in their home opener, the Packers, that should bring them some momentum for the home crowd. I would have to say this game's a toss-up here, the way the Vikings played. But in terms of how the Vikings and the Packers play against each other, it's really goes back and forth between these two teams, and they play each other hard. So who am I picking in this game? I got to go with the Green Bay Packers here. You just can't count on Aaron Rodgers the way that offense is going here. But no question this game will be a very close game. I expect this game to be very close. But I like the Packers. I see them winning this game. They'll probably win by a touchdown. Packers over the Vikings. Key game number 2, going into the AFC West. We got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Oakland Raiders. Yes, I'm actually going to talk about the Raiders here. Patrick Mahomes had a big game last week. Almost, thankfully, no serious injury. Chiefs fans, you better hope that's the case here. 25 of 33, 378 yards, 3 touchdowns. But obviously the big loss for the Chiefs was Tyreek Hill. Hill being injured does hurt them. Now, Patrick Mahomes now is going to be limited in his offensive weaponry. But I think for this game, I mean, look, the Chiefs are 8-point favorites in this one, even though the game is in Oakland. Now, the Raiders with Derek Carr with 22 of 26, 259 yards, 1 touchdown, beating a rollery Broncos team that really the Broncos are kind of a mess here. I didn't expect them to be all that well, and I would have thought, I mean, I did pick the Broncos to beat the Raiders, but I was so dead wrong on that one. I people who know me on a personal level, I'm not a big Raiders fan. I know I don't really like them, but I give credit where credit's due. They played the Broncos very well, but their biggest test comes ahead against the Chiefs here. I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Despite them missing Hill, their offense is still pretty well. But I actually see this game being a very close game here. I expect this game to be pretty close. A lot of you thinking, no, the Chiefs will blow them out. No. The way the Raiders played, they could be legit. I don't know. It's tough to say. It's only week 2. But I'm still picking the Chiefs here. Their offense is much better than the Raiders. And that's the way I see it. I think that Patrick Mahomes might have a field day in Oakland. And that's why I'm going to pick the Chiefs here. Chiefs over the Raiders. Key game number 3. Big one here. A rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. And there's no question the New Orleans Saints, you don't think they're hungry for a win against the Rams. The Saints versus the Rams. Rams are actually a 3-point favorite in this one. And keep in mind, this video here, this is the early odds. The odds might change a bit. Drew Brees and the Saints. Drew Brees went 32 of 43, 370 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Jared Goff in the big win over the Carolina Panthers went 23 of 39, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Both teams have the offense. Rams defense a little bit slightly better than the Saints. But in reality, this game is a toss-up. This game is a toss-up. You don't think that the Saints want retribution, even though this is only a regular season game. And I kind of said somewhere down the line, this could be a rematch of last year's conference title game. We don't know that for certainty. And this could decide home field advantage as well. Really, right now, the Rams have the defense, but you don't think right now the Saints are hungry to get a win over the Rams. The game is in the Coliseum. It's in LA for this game here. This is really a huge toss-up here. I don't know who wins this game. Both teams have the offense. Rams slightly defensively better. But I'm actually going to go out on the upset here. I think this New Orleans Saints team, you don't think they're fired up for this game? I think they'll go into the Coliseum, and I think they're going to pull off an upset here against the Rams. It'll be a very tight game. I expect this game to be very good and very close. But I'm picking the New Orleans Saints here in an upset. Drew Brees and that Saints offense, they got the offense here that matches up very well with the Rams here. And that's why I'm picking the Saints in this game. Expect a very close game here. But I'm going to go on the upset here. Saints over the Rams. And finally, key game number 4. the Cleveland Browns versus the New York Jets. Now, why am I talking about this game when it seems like two teams that 0-1 and all that? Certainly, look, all the hype for the Cleveland Browns here. I know it's only week number 2, but this really is a must-win game for the Browns. They really need to prove themselves to shut up the critics of everybody who criticized them. Baker Mayfield and that offense really needs to click here. They need to get their act together. Otherwise, you go 0-2 right now, they're in deep trouble in that division, the way the Ravens are playing right now. Now, Baker Mayfield in his game against the Titans, 25 of 38, 285 yards, 1 touchdown, but 3 interceptions in that game. That was the killer in that game. Now, the New York Jets and Donald, they had a lead against the Bills, and they ended up choking here. That offense really just collapsed in the second half of that game against the Bills. Donald only going 28 of 41, 175 yards, 1 touchdown. Luckily, he didn't have a pick in that game. This game is also a toss-up, and the Browns are a slight 2.5-point favorite in this game. That number should be much lower because really the Jets, they kind of show some offensive click that they had in that game against the Bills when really they should have won that game, but their defense is a problem. Like I said, the Browns are in a must-win game, even though it's only week 2, but they are in a must-win game. And I think they're going to, and this is a game I'm going to say. Now, I picked the Browns last week, and I got burned. But I'm still going to go with the Browns again. I think the Browns will finally get a win here. I think in a must-win game because they know they know with Pittsburgh losing to the Pats, they got to get their whole team together and really get going in that conference because they know they can't fall further behind if they go 0-2. The Jets, I would say also they're in a must-win game in this one here, but really the Patriots have owned that AFC East, so really I don't really see much of a concern here. But the Browns are in a must-win game, and I'm picking the Cleveland Browns in this one. Browns offense is a tad better than the Jets, but it should be a close game on Monday night. I'm still gonna stay with that pick, Browns over the Jets. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 2. For all of my week 2 picks, please check the description below. And I'll see you guys next week when I talk about my picks for week number 3. And until then, take care and enjoy your football weekend.